Welcome to today's webinar on Microsoft Donation Program, Get Your Questions Answered. My name is Cami Griffith, and I'd like to spend a minute introducing our presenters and thanking those who are assisting in the chats. We've got Cameron Jones, Corey Bode, actually Rachel Harmon is sitting in for him, he's ill today, and Kyla Hunt, all from TechSoup, answering your chat questions. And I'd like to welcome and thank Penny Clifton for taking time to put this presentation today together. Penny, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Penny. I've lived in the Bay Area all my life, and I've worked at TechSoup in account management services for about 1.5 years. Outside of work, I love reading, travel, hockey, and recently started scuba diving lessons.
Well, that's excellent. I'm quite jealous. I would love to take scuba diving. So thanks everyone for attending, and I'm Cami Griffiths. I am actually a former TechSoup employee. I'm now just here doing some webinars for them, and really pleased to have an opportunity to share this information with you. I'm going to spend a minute going over the agenda. So again, this is focused entirely on the questions that you've submitted during the registration. And what we found was there were, of course, some common questions that we grouped together. So after I talk just a minute about who is TechSoup, for those of you who might not be aware of all the things that we have to offer, the questions that we'll cover are related to the donation program basics, eligibility, this thing called title groups, which is new to the changes in the Microsoft program, how you make requests, server products, software assurance, something called Get Genuine Solutions, volume licensing, and then more about the Microsoft Donation Center. And we'll have hopefully around 15 minutes at the end for live Q&A. But again, please submit your questions that you have via the chat. Know that they'll probably be addressed during the webinar, and if they're not, then be sure to put those in the chat for the live Q&A. So quickly, who is TechSoup? We are a nonprofit organization, and as of June 2010, we served more than 127,000 organizations, distributed more than 6.3 million technology donations, which enabled nonprofits to save, and this is just crazy, $1.8 billion in IT expenses in 33 countries around the world. And as you know, IT can be a very expensive part of what we do as nonprofits, so it's great to be able to save a little of that through TechSoup. And so our mission, TechSoup is a part of TechSoup Global. We're working towards a day when every nonprofit, library, and social benefit organization on the planet has the technology, knowledge, and resources they need to operate at their full potential. So know that we are here to help you as nonprofits and libraries succeed in what you do. So now I'm going to jump into our questions that were submitted. So we've had about 130 people register for this webinar, and so we couldn't address every 130 questions. So what we did is group them into some categories. And so each of these sections, there's slides, there are questions that are somewhat different but pertain to the same topic. So I'm going to be asking these questions of Penny. So what we want to learn more about, so folks wanted to learn more about the donation program, and I would like to know some details about the program's changes. So Penny, can you address that?
Yes, the Microsoft Software Donation Program for nonprofits and public libraries in the United States is one of TechSoup's most popular donors. By June 30th, 2011, organizations in the United States and territories had received donations with a fair market value of over $1.6 billion. Microsoft made some recent changes to its donation program through TechSoup to make it easier for eligible organizations to get the software products they need when they need them. And here are just 2 of those changes. An organization's first request that includes Microsoft products made after July 27th, 2011 will initiate and set the anniversary day for a recurring 2-year request cycle. That day will always be the reset day for that organization's requests for Microsoft thereafter. Okay. Also, there is now no minimum number of licenses required per donation request.
Great. Thanks, Penny. So other folks wondered who is eligible and would our organization be eligible for the program?
Okay. Most United States nonprofits designated by the IRS as a 501c3 nonprofit as well as public libraries are eligible for Microsoft donations through TechSoup. There are some types of nonprofits that are not eligible, like educational institutions, political organizations, faith-based organizations, as well as most healthcare organizations and private libraries. If your organization is faith-based, but you have a primary mission or program that's secular, you may be able to register at TechSoup with an organization type that is eligible for Microsoft products. Okay. All donations can only be used to support your organization's non-religious activities, though. Okay, and public libraries can request Microsoft products through TechSoup for public access computers only. Donated software is only for use on computers the public served by the library has access to, or machines used directly in the management of those public access computers, or the library's public access program. Okay. There are some organizations that have recently been made eligible to request Microsoft through TechSoup that were not before the changes. Hunting or fishing clubs, swimming or tennis clubs, other sports clubs like Little Leagues, boys clubs, etc., training in sports, amateur athletic associations. Also newly eligible are some private foundations, which includes private grant making, independent, and private operating foundations. Please see your screen for a link to the eligibility quiz. Okay, and there's a little picture of what it looks like. Bear in mind, it's not working correctly right now for private foundations, but it should be okay for everyone else.
Great, thanks. So the next group of questions have to do with title groups. And I want to know more about title groups and ordering maximums. And can a person request a title from the same line of products more than once? A title group is a collection of products that do essentially the same thing. You can request up to 50 licenses each from up to 10 different title groups each over a 2-year request cycle. It used to be the limit was 6 titles, period, and up to 50 of each every 2-year period. Now you can request products from up to 10 title groups and up to 50 licenses from each group. And that includes desktop applications, operating systems and upgrades, and client access licenses, or CALs, for servers. Okay. Now this includes any version. A title group includes any version of a product, such as the year, like 2010 or 2011, language versions like Spanish or English, processor versions meaning 32 or 64-bit, platform meaning Windows or Mac, and class versions like standard or enterprise. And they're listed there. Okay. And the next screen is a list of the various title groups. It's quite a large list, but I'll just give you a little shot there. Okay. Okay, now it's there is a link to a list of title groups, and on the right is an example of a title group. It's the Windows desktop operating systems. Now, it's always been Microsoft's intent for their donation program to allow eligible organizations to request up to 50 licenses of a product, regardless of year, version, edition, or language. And title groups are now used to most closely adhere to Microsoft's program guidelines. Most eligible organizations won't actually be affected by this change. Okay, and title groups were added as part of the product details on July 27th. Every product has its own information page, and you can see where it's circled. That's at the top of the product page. Thank you so much. So again, these links that you see on the slides will be provided in the follow-up message if you did want to check out that list of title groups. So now we'd like to hear how many items can be ordered each year, and can we order only once a year?
Okay. There's no limit to the number of times an eligible organization can request Microsoft products through TechSoup in the 2-year cycle, as long as they haven't used up their full quality allotment.
Great. Before I move to the next question, I wanted to remind folks or let you know, if you didn't hear or attend our webinar last week, we did a webinar specifically on the changes to the Microsoft Donation Program. So this is a follow-up to that webinar for folks who had additional questions. So I will send you, in addition to all the links that I mentioned earlier, a link to that webinar recording. So if you want to dive in deeper, it's much more detailed on the changes to the donation program. And this webinar is to talk about questions that you have in general. So if there are things that you're feeling like, oh, changes to the Microsoft donation, what's that? Know that there's an entire hour of content that we have that I'll send to you. Okay, next question. I want to know more about server licenses.
Okay, after July 27th, 2011, organizations may request a maximum of 5 server products, regardless of title group. As an example, 5 Windows Server licenses, 2 Windows Server licenses, and 2 Exchange Server licenses, and 1 SQL Server licenses. That adds up to 5. Okay. Also, client access licenses, or CALs, that give you access to a server. Those don't count as a server product. They're part of their own title group because they're offered separately from servers.
So now we're going to talk about software assurance. So how do we take advantage of software assurance benefits? And if you order Microsoft software like Windows 7, are you eligible for free upgrades?
Okay, software assurance is offered with most Microsoft software requested through TechSoup. Please see your screen for a link with more information on software assurance. Okay, and with software assurance, that comes with complimentary upgrades for up to 2 years on most Microsoft products that you receive through TechSoup, although there is a one-time shipping cost for some products if you wish to receive disk media, meaning backup CDs or replacement disks. You can also get access to online product training, and you can get special licenses for using some products on your home computer. And you can still request free upgrades after the software assurance 2 years has expired, but you can upgrade only to versions that were released before the expiration. Okay? And software assurance upgrades need to be obtained directly from Microsoft, so they don't count against your TechSoup limit of 50 licenses from up to 10 title groups. Okay. And all Microsoft products except the Windows Get Genuine operating systems come with software assurance. Again, Get Genuine operating systems do not come with software assurance, but all other Microsoft products offered through TechSoup do.
So what is the Windows Get Genuine program?
I knew you were going to ask that. Okay. Windows Get Genuine products are for small and medium-sized organizations, and they are full operating systems, not upgrades. They are Windows 7 Professional 32-bit Get Genuine and Windows 7 Professional 64-bit Get Genuine. Again, they're full operating systems, and they do not come with software assurance. Okay. Organizations can get Windows operating system upgrades through TechSoup when the next version is released. Okay. The Get Genuine solutions are for nonprofits and public libraries that are out of compliance with software licensing due to piracy or some other licensing issue. Get Genuine software corrects this situation in which an organization has an existing PC with one of the following operating systems or problems. It could be counterfeit, pirated, or otherwise illegal, unlicensed, property licensed Windows operating system. Home Premium, Home Basic, or Starter editions of Windows 7 or Windows Vista, Home or Starter editions of Windows XP, Linux, FreeDOS, Unix, or other operating system, or if you have no operating system installed at all. And here is a link for more information about Get Genuine.
And how do I easily manage Microsoft Volume licensing?
Okay. You can go to a link on your screen to TechSoup's page on Microsoft Volume licensing.
And is there a place within our TechSoup account that we can see the remaining allotment available of Microsoft donation within the current 2-year cycle?
Yes, there is. The Microsoft Donation Center at TechSoup. There you can see the anniversary date of your organization's 2-year cycle and how much the total allotment is still available. You can find it in 2 ways. One way is to follow the path I'm going to show you in just a second. Okay, first you need to log in at TechSoup.org. Up at the top of your screen, one of the options is My Account, so you click that. Okay. On the next page, you can click Donation History / Status. It's kind of on the top right of your screen. And then again on the right of the next page is Microsoft Donation Center. Just click that. And the other way is, again, you have to log in. Over on the left side of the screen, kind of near the top, it says Get Started. Underneath that, click Get Products. And then when the screen moves to the next page, scroll down, and you'll find a heading that says Manage My Account on the left. Inside that box, click Donation Status. And then on the next page, click Microsoft Donation Center on the right. Okay. If you have any other questions, you can reply directly concerning your organization. You can contact TechSoup Client Services at 800-659-3579, or you can email us at customerservice@techsoup.org.
Excellent. Thank you, Penny. So we ripped through that really quickly, and there's already a slew of questions waiting. So if your question is still, if you're still wondering a certain thing related to the Microsoft Donation Program, please submit those via the chat at this time. We're going to move on to questions and answers, and I'm going to just go through the list as they were coming in. I know that these have already been answered to the particular folks who asked them, but since our chat, the way that the chat works is you don't see all of the back and forth that happens. The folks out there listening haven't seen these answers. So Penny, can you please define an educational organization?
Okay, yes. An educational organization would be obviously schools, okay, of any level, elementary, middle, high school, college. It's also other educational aid type situations like remedial reading, help with testing. It could be scholarships for students. It could even be student housing, and PTAs are also included in this group.
And a follow-up question to that Susan asked, we are a museum and nature center. We do some educational work but are not a school. Would we be eligible?
Okay, yes. You would actually be registered as a museum, not a school, even if you do some educational work. All museums do. Probably just arts and culture maybe would be a good idea, depending on what sort of exhibits you have in your museum. If you have art, well definitely there is a type specifically for museums, but if you are a nature museum, you might be under conservation. Probably either one of those is fine. Most organizations can fit into more than one type. It's just the one in which you feel most comfortable.
Great. And one more related to eligibility. What about community centers that have classes?
Okay, yeah, community centers are definitely eligible for Microsoft. There is actually a type specifically for community centers. You know, community centers, it's kind of a catch-all term because you probably do a lot of different things for on behalf of a specific area. But yeah, community centers are definitely eligible.
And one quick question that came through when we were talking about title groups, I'm going to bring this slide back up. Question was by Brett, how many title groups are there? And I guess I saw in the chat there are around 70. So know that within these title groups are multiple applications within each of these groups. And since you'll be getting a copy of the PowerPoint, you'll see this list. And then you can also get to that list via this link, this PDF file. I wanted to quickly address that question. Next question from Christine. We are 501c3 offering adult day care services, assisted living and transportation services. Would we be eligible?
Okay, yes. Help for the elderly or any adult daycare is eligible for Microsoft. There is one type called housing and care for the elderly. You could be in that. You could also, another type you might be listed as is goods and services for the poor. Poor meaning just anybody at a disadvantage, not necessarily economic. But yes, both of those types are eligible for Microsoft.
And this is a question from Andy. This is related to faith-based organizations. There are many aspects of our faith-based organization that are secular. However, when I've attempted to change our group's purpose, it warns me that I may have to reapply. Can you address that, Penny?
Actually, you don't have to reapply. You just have to requalify. What we'll need is just a letter explaining the change. It should be on your organization's letterhead, and it should say our old organization type was this. Our new organization type is now that, and the reason we changed it is, and then the reason. Another thing you'll need is probably to call us and have us send you a copy of a survey if you're changing from faith-based to secular. It's just, I think it's 6 questions, and the answers are yes or no. So then you email us back or fax us the letter and the survey, and then you can be requalified. If you want to include any literature about the secular activities that you have, you can do so also. Thank you.
A couple more questions related to title groups. So Victor wanted clarification that you can get 50 licenses for each title group, and that is correct, up to 10 title groups. So another question, I don't know who this was from, that wanted further clarifications. And the question is, and I think this is actually incorrect, so Penny, correct me if I'm wrong. So if we order Office for Mac 2011 in August and get 6 licenses, can we order Office for Mac 2011 again in May? So I guess that is correct, but they can only then, the second order, they'll only get 44. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Okay. If you get 6 of any kind of Office, you can still get up to 44 of any other kinds of Office in the 2-year period. Once that 2-year period ends, though, everything resets at 0. And it's like you're starting all over again with the 50 licenses and 10 title groups.
And again, that resets on the first day, the day that you ordered it originally. Okay, so someone had a question about fulfillment. So can you talk about fulfillment and how the volume licensing center works?
Okay, yes. With Microsoft, for almost everything you get a choice. You can get the disks or not. Okay? And it will ask you in the checkout process if you want the disks. If you elect to receive the disks, then of course they will be sent to you physically by Microsoft. Whether you get the disks or not, you will be sent an email with download information. Okay, and this will have links to go to and some instructions. And whether you get the disks or not, you can, if you wish, download it directly from Microsoft's website. The links, that's where they take you, is to Microsoft. Okay, and If you have not created a login before at Microsoft with your organization's contact email, then you'll need to do that. But Microsoft, when you get there, they'll have instructions on how to do that. And once you've done that, then you log in with your information at Microsoft Volume Licensing Service Center. And through that, you can get to a list of the products that you've requested through TechSoup. And then you can also download them and get the license keys.
So Lori has a question about the Get Genuine. How many Macs Get Genuine can you order?
Okay, well you can get up to 50 in that title group. Even though it does count towards the 50 licenses and and one of the 10 title groups, you can only order Get Genuine products one time ever. Okay, what that means is, for example, let's say you get 10 of Get Genuine, okay, in one of the requests for Microsoft products through TechSoup. Okay, in the 2-year request cycle, you could get up to 40 more of other operating system upgrades, okay, because those are also part of the same title group. But you couldn't get any more Get Genuine ever. Even after the first 2 years, when you're reset at 0, you still can't get any more Get Genuine. You can get operating system upgrades from that same title group, but you couldn't get any more Get Genuine. So what I recommend is you really know how many you're going to need, because again, you can only order those one time.
Great, thanks for that clarification. This question doesn't specifically pertain to Microsoft, but I'd like you to address a loose question. Can we add a user to our TechSoup, like someone who can only read and maybe research products? Right now they only have one person per agency.
Yes, you can add authorized agents. Just have that person create a login at TechSoup.org by going to TechSoup.org and clicking Join TechSoup up at the top. Bear in mind, this is just for the creation of a user profile, not an organization account, because it sounds like your organization is already registered. Okay? Once you create a user profile, you can then link it to the organization's account, thus making them an authorized agent, by using the association code. Now if you don't know what this is, you can give us a call and anybody at our customer service can help you out with that.
Victor has a question. He just took a position as IT and is interested in figuring out if what they've ordered in the past, if the OS is a Windows, their OS for Windows is Volume, OEM, or Upgrade. Is there any way to know that?
Okay. Yes, you can look at donation request history if you're an authorized agent for the organization. You can actually get to it through the same path that I went over when we were doing the more formal part of the webinar. You go to My Account. Once you log in, you go to My Account, click Donation History Status, or click My Account at the top of the screen, then click Donation History / Status on the top right. You don't need to click Microsoft Donation Center, but you can, although it doesn't really include anything before July 27th, 2011. But you can look at all previous orders for any product. You can set parameters by date, or you can actually enter a donation request number.
So that flows nicely into Brett's question, which is, I don't see the Microsoft Donation Program link in my account's donation request history, and that's because these changes were just implemented and nothing will show up. Is that correct?
Yeah, it could. Well, it could be for 2 reasons. It could be maybe your organization isn't eligible for Microsoft, but if it is, then yeah, I'd say that the reason is there's nothing in it anyway at this point. But once you do place a request for Microsoft, then those fields should populate.
Another question from Mark: is there any tech support for any of these titles from Microsoft?
Okay. Well, there is a way to contact Microsoft's Volume Licensing Service Center if you need help navigating it and downloading it. Microsoft does at least offer that to begin with. What you get from TechSoup is essentially the same thing you would get if you just went out and bought it retail. So if any product is supposed to come with support if you buy it from a retail store, then if you get it from us, it will still come with that same amount of support. And that applies to all our products, not just for Microsoft.
Another faith-based organization question. Albert says, we are a 501c3 Christian church. However, we want to teach the Microsoft Office Suite to assist in getting unskilled people skilled to earn gainful employment. Great work, Albert. This program is geared to the entire community, regardless of their belief. Do we qualify?
Yes, that sounds like it can qualify as a secular organization type. That would probably be under job training and assistance. In fact, the survey that I talked about to someone else earlier, one of the questions in it is, do you serve everybody? Or, if it doesn't matter whether they're a member of the church or a member of the faith or not, if you'll serve anybody who, who comes in, then yes, that would qualify it as secular.
And I just popped up the slide for the eligibility quiz, because I believe that's what you were referring to, right, Penny, the eligibility? Great.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question. Okay, so Mark asks, we are a food bank, and when we transition to a new product such as Server 2008, is there any support available as we do the upgrades?
Okay, yeah, again, Microsoft does offer help in downloading and installing. The phone number for it, let me see if I can remember off the top of my head. It's 866-230-0560. Okay, and this is a direct number to the Volume Licensing Service Center. It's not a general Microsoft number. And that's where you go if you need help just getting the product downloaded and installed.
A question from Kimmy regarding the OS. We have several old computers that have that were donated and already have software on them. Is that illegal to use?
Okay. No, not initially. I mean, if you probably don't know much about how it got those operating systems, but generally if you get computers with operating systems already on those, they're probably legit. And if you want to improve them, what you actually need is an operating system upgrade, not the Get Genuine. I mean, if you know that the operating system it has is somehow pirated or counterfeit copy or has other licensing issues, then you can have it wiped clean and install Get Genuine. But if you know that it's perfectly legit, then again what you need probably is an upgrade.
So a question about server licenses from Marcella. If I need more than 50 licenses, can I request a donation through TechSoup for the first 50 and then use a charity reseller for the additional?
Yes. In fact, that's what we recommend that people do. In fact, I have a URL for another software donation program. It's called Consistent Computer Bargains, and they are at CCB, like Consistent Computer Bargains, nonprofits, and that's plural, .com. You might check them out. When people need more than their allotment, we do refer people to them.
Great. So we only have a few more questions left that have been submitted. So if you're still holding out, please submit those questions now. And this is a very specific one, so I'm not sure if Penny will be able to answer it. This is related to volume licensing. Cheryl's question is, every time I attempt to log into Volume License Center, the login screen continues to search with no results. Ever have tried to access this on numerous occasions. Have you heard this before, and do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, sometimes that comes up. There are several reasons why it might be. One is Microsoft could be having a problem. Um, also, when people initially create an account at the Volume Licensing Service Center, they need to use the organization's contact email that the download information was sent to by TechSoup. You need to have that as part of the login, and it could very well be you either haven't created an account or there is an account for your organization, but it's using an old contact email that used to belong to someone that isn't there. It would probably be best if you called us so that one of our account management specialists can maybe troubleshoot it with you. Will probably ask you some questions, give you some information, and also the number to contact Microsoft to get the maybe to have the account reset. We can also do that from this end. It may end up being a combination of that, but that is very specific what you're asking, so it's probably a good idea to call us.
Great. Thanks for folks for submitting more questions. So a question has come in by two different people for two different reasons, but it's essentially the same question. This is regarding why certain groups don't qualify for Microsoft or certain parts of organizations. So regarding faith-based organizations as well as the staff of libraries. So if you could just talk a little bit about Microsoft's eligibility program and why some folks aren't eligible.
Okay, sure. When we establish a relationship with any donor, one of the things that we ask them is, what sort of organizations do you want to support? And there are hundreds of different types. Initially when people register the organization, they're actually kind of a bit daunted at how many types there are to choose from. But what these organizations tell us is, we'd like to support this, that, and the other types of organizations. And anyone who isn't included on that list simply isn't eligible. And all of our donors have different criteria in this regard. When we started to talk to Microsoft about software donations, they told us specifically, we want to support these types of organizations and these types of organizations only. So again, anybody who isn't on that list just isn't eligible for Microsoft products through TechSoup.
A question from Bob, who wants some clarification on the Get Genuine. If I buy a laptop with Windows 7 Home Premium and I need to get the Windows Genuine product to upgrade to Windows 7 Professional, is that correct?
Yes. Okay. With our upgrade products, you can't go from home to business. You have to go from home to home or from business to business. But for Get Genuine, if you have the home version, that will enable you to get to the professional version. Okay, so you are quite correct. Oh, also, I actually didn't answer part of the last question about libraries and public-facing computers. That, again, is the stipulation of Microsoft. They only want their donations to be used by computers the public that uses the library has access to.
So a few more questions about Get Genuine, because folks are really interested in this program. And this is a question from Lori. To be clear about ordering Get Genuine, even though other Microsoft products you can order when you want, Get Genuine is only once. That means I can't ask for 25 licenses and then another 25 at a later point. So is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Get Genuine is kind of a come clean type of thing offered by Microsoft. If you have licensing issues or no operating system at all, or you want to go from home to business, you have a starter edition, Get Genuine allows you to do that one time. So you're correct.
And this is actually the last question I have. So again, if you have any questions that you're sitting on, just send those out to us right now. Kimmy's question, how can you tell if a computer has a genuine Microsoft operating system?
That, I'm afraid, I don't exactly know the answer to.
Gosh, we stumped you.
Yeah. Oh, Rachel just told me that she answered that in the chat. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. You click your mouse once on your desktop, anywhere there is not an icon or a window. Press the F1 key, and you'll get the Microsoft Windows help. Type Genuine Microsoft in the search box, and you'll find the instructions. I think that is the answer. Yeah.
Okay, great. A few more questions have come in. Thanks. Let's see. Does Get Genuine reset? Okay, so this is a one-time only. More questions around Get Genuine. So you can only place an order once. So if you place an order for one Get Genuine and then next week you decide, oh, I want one more, too bad, you're out of luck. You can only do it one time. So order as many as you think you're going to need ever. So you can't order it a second time. Tiffany's question. So I have Windows 7 Premium now, but I'm confused what I need to do to upgrade. I don't think I understand why I need to get Genuine.
Okay, well, you'll only need Get Genuine, if you have a special sort of situation. Okay, it's not for everybody. Let me see if I can find the Get Genuine screen. Okay, hold on. I'm looking for the Get Genuine screen. Where's the Get Genuine screen? Where are you? Hold on, I shall get there.
This is the whole presentation and fast forward.
Okay. Okay, I shall arrive. Hold on. Okay, here we are. Okay. You really only need Get Genuine if there's some sort of licensing issue. Okay? You might have a different sort of operating system that's non-Microsoft. Linux, FreeDOS, Unix is another one. You might have no operating system at all. Sometimes people get donated computers that are completely empty or wiped clean. Also, if you have Home Premium, Home Basic, or Starter editions, you can upgrade. You can wipe it clean of that and you do the Get Genuine. Mostly, though, it's for counterfeit, illegal, unlicensed, pirated, or somehow improperly licensed Windows operating system. Okay, if the operating system you have is perfectly legitimate, then probably what would be best would just be an upgrade. Okay. Thank you.
Some more questions that have come in. Marissa asks, we are a nonprofit that offers legal services to low-income people. We were denied before, but no one can remember why. Do we qualify?
Okay. Well, it depends. It might be a good idea to call us so you can discuss the matter with an account management specialist. Generally, legal services of the type you offer, there is a type for that called Legal Services to Indigents. And I believe it is eligible for Microsoft, but you might be registered as a different organization type. If you call us, there might be a possibility we can change it, and then you would be eligible. But not looking at your account, I wouldn't be able to tell you what type you're registered as. But you can log in at TechSoup and look at My Account. You'll click My Account at the top, and then scroll down and click the name of your organization, and that will take you to a list of all the information we have about your organization. It also includes address, email, and phone number. But your organization type is also listed on that page.
Can a single license such as Office be used for both my work computer and laptop?
Okay, yeah, you can use it twice as long as they're not put on computers that are going to be used at the same time. For example, at your workplace, if you have both a desktop that you work on while you're there and a laptop that you take with you when you go elsewhere, you can download it onto both of those. But again, it has to be on two computers that you would not be using at the same time.
A question from Bob. Before learning about Get Genuine, I was able to do a clean install of the upgrade product on 3 computers that had Windows 7 prior. I successfully registered the product. Do I need to now order Get Genuine and reinstall?
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you ask that question again?
I guess what he's saying is he had previously installed one license on 3 computers, and Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, and it successfully worked. So now he's wondering, do I now need to order Get Genuine and reinstall?
Okay. Well, depends on why you were able to install them on 3 computers. It could be you had that many licenses or more available to you. Occasionally I'll hear about something like this happening, but again, without looking at specifics, I don't know how you were able to.
We can follow up with him afterwards if that question needs to be further explained. Okay, thanks Bob for that question. Kevin's question, this is a pretty good one. One organization, 3 branch offices. Each branch office has a separate TechSoup registration. One branch office orders a server product from TechSoup and 50 CALs for its use. Can the other branch office order 50 CALs on their TechSoup registration for use on that same server system by their branch members? Okay.
Well, branches, part of a definition of a branch is they have their own server, but each organization that has a separate registration at TechSoup can order individually. If one branch requests Microsoft, it doesn't affect the requests that the other branch makes through TechSoup. Now, a lot of the time the branches, they are connected to the parent organization's server. It's just important that if one branch needs a certain number of them and the other branch also needs them, that they place these orders separately for themselves. Okay? It's probably not a good idea if the parent organization, if they have a registration, if they're not supposed to request them and then distribute it to the branches. That's why we allow each branch to register on its own, because they can do their own requesting of products.
Great. So these are very specific questions, and they're good, and I hope that they apply to more than just the person that asked. But David's question is, I do the IT work for my charity group, and we have computers that have Windows XP Pro installed from an OEM reinstallation CD. I don't know where the CD came from. I just know that the CD will install what appears to be a genuine copy of XP Pro. Should I upgrade or do the Get Genuine? And one other question that Andrea had related to Get Genuine, if you could address this as well, Penny, is the cost. How much does it cost?
Okay. Well, the answer to the first question is, if you do have a legitimate operating system from Microsoft, then you don't really need Get Genuine. The XP, I don't know if it's I don't remember if Cami said it was a home or starter version. If it is, then yes, you can use the Get Genuine. If it's already a professional edition of XP, then what you would need is just an upgrade. As far as cost, that would actually be on our website. I don't remember offhand what the cost for Get Genuine is. But if you go to TechSoup.org, underneath Get Started on the left, click Get Products. And then you scroll down, and on the left you should get to a heading that says Browse by Partners. They're all listed alphabetically. Just go down to M and click Microsoft. This will take you to a page with some text about the program. Underneath that there's a list of categories. Okay? And then all you have to do is pick one of the categories. One of them is operating systems and upgrades. Click on that. And then I believe that Get Genuine is on the list this takes you to. I can't remember if it's on its own specific list, but the price, I believe, is $6 per download, I think.
Great, and if that's not correct, some folks on the chat will send out the correct information. So some questions about the, kind of related to the branch question that happened earlier. Regarding the branches, can this be done under one tax ID, or do they have to have separate EIN numbers?
I believe you're asking a question about branches. Sometimes parent organizations will have a group, group eligibility, meaning that any branch of the parent organization is automatically covered under the parent organization's exemption. Sometimes branches will have their own 501c3 status. Sometimes it's both. Generally, if someone is just covered under the parent organization's tax exemption, we like the tax ID number to be the same, but that's just really for our own record keeping. If the branch has its own tax exempt status, then it can be that specific one. But even if you have the same tax ID number as all the other branches in an organization, that is okay.
Great. And we may only have time for one more question, but maybe a second one if we can get this one done quickly. Kristen's question, if I request 50 product licenses, is there a single $31 admin fee for the entire order, or am I paying an admin fee for each copy, so it will be $1,550 for 50 licenses? Can you clarify?
Yeah, the latter is correct. $31 is for one license. So if you wanted to get 50, it would be $31 times 50.
Okay, and William's question about related to Macintosh or Apple computers. Do I need to get Genuine for my Apples that I want to run Windows in the Apple OS?
I think I'm going to have to ask Rachel about this because she is probably a more, The answer apparently is we're not sure yet. We have to get clarification from Microsoft on that. Let's see. I'm not sure how long it will take us to get clarification. But it is one we don't currently have the answer to, but will at some point. My advice is to check back with us by email or phone in the near future, and by then we might have an answer.
Great, and just one last question that was answered earlier that I can address. Can I mix and match my TechSoup licensing with the ones I purchased in the marketplace? I need a little more than 50 licenses. So yes, definitely you get your 50 from TechSoup, and then you can either get the Microsoft through another donation program or just buy it from the store. So that is all the time that we have. Thank you all for sticking through this hour of rapid questions and answers. Wanted to let you know or remind you again that we did do another webinar last week. I'll send you a link to that recording along with this week's recording. And just to let you know, next week's webinar is Free Windows 7 Curriculum, Basic Computer Training at Your Library or Nonprofit. So for those of you offering computer classes, I know we saw a few of you on the list of your questions. This would be a great webinar for you to attend, and the link to the URL here will find you a link to register. So with that, I'd like to thank ReadyTalk. This webinar was made possible by ReadyTalk, which has donated the use of their system to help TechSoup expand awareness of technology throughout the nonprofit sector. ReadyTalk helps nonprofits and libraries in the US and Canada reach geographically dispersed areas and increase collaboration through their audio conferencing and web conferencing services. So I really appreciate being able to offer these for free to you guys, and thank you all for attending. Once I close the window, you'll see a post-event survey pop up. Please take a minute to fill that out. We do read all of your comments, so take some time to do that. And again, appreciate your time in attending today's webinar, and look forward to seeing you again at a future webinar. Thanks everyone. Have a great day, and thanks Penny so much. Bye guys. See you.
Thank you. Please stand by.